Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's get right into this question. It says, "Hey there, Perch. Hey there. Your video about buying at the LCS versus buying online, plus the video about the editor being credited, has made me think about the industry. I feel like I've been losing trust in the industry as a whole. It seems like nothing is above board now. This is a while ago at this point, but the industry should have learned from the non-wedding of Batman and Catwoman. They lied about the wedding, and then to cover themselves, DC leaked the plot point that they were not getting married the day before it went on sale. But my LCS has tons of copies unsold and people canceling orders for the hardcover wedding album. Recently, DC and Marvel solicited artists for books that were just not on the book. Marco Cinchetto has been solicited for every Ultimate Spider-Man book so far, and that is just a lie because we've gotten a fill-in artist. Then Marvel lies about their series being ongoing. We hear things like never be the same again, only for things to be the same. DC made a huge deal out of Jorge Jimenez on Batman, but he was doing a Scott Snyder book 4 months later with fill-in artists on Batman. This is just the comic companies, not even the poorly run shops that I hear horror stories about. I feel so lucky to have a really great LCS owner who keeps his dealings with me above board. When I order a book, I buy it, no matter if there is a change in something, because I feel it is my obligation to the LCS owner. So it doesn't feel great to be lied to and then have to spend my money because I truly do like my LCS and I don't want to screw the owner over. You would think that as an industry, as niche as comics, telling the truth and not screwing over the people who actually, uh, okay, that's telling the truth and not screwing out the few people who actually walk into an LCS would be a good idea. I am with you, Perch. I want comics to be huge, but the industry does not seem to want that, with all the lying and deceiving does not help. What are your thoughts on solicitations, following through with promises, and that sort of thing in the comic industry? Well written mail. Thank you for that. What's funny is I'll bet that if there's people who are in the comic industry listening to this right now, who are more on the senior management side, either a higher level creator or an editor or somebody like that, they probably take offense to that mail and they're like, well, that's just overblown. And I think that kind of identifies the problem in a weird way. And what I mean by that is, these problems that are being identified in the mail are real problems. If you didn't ever work or spend a lot of time in a comic shop, you might not have seen the frustration and anger that customers have when a series that was advertised as ongoing is canceled, or when there was an artist promised to be on the book and then the artist is suddenly not on the book, or there's still an issue, or even things like there's a storyline going on and they put in a fill-in issue in the middle of the storyline. Now, I remember explaining kind of a billion times that, hey, there are reasons for that, especially back in the, late 80s, early 90s. You had to get, the comic coming out monthly was critical. And so if the art team fell behind or something happened or somebody got sick or, there were good reasons why, the comic might not come out on time. And therefore, the fill-in issue helped, but it didn't make the customers feel good about that fill-in issue. They were annoyed, which tells us a few things. One, it tells us the customers were so into the damn comic and the story that they didn't want any interruption, and that should be a good thing, right? I mean, if you're a comic company to get your audience like so hooked on your book that they're paying for, that they are frustrated when the book isn't coming out fast enough, that is a positive. That's something you can work off of as a comic company, but I use that as an example because it's a legit example. People, creative team, artists, others do get sick. Things fall behind. Keeping a monthly schedule is important. And so, this is how it would go. And that's reasonable. Customers like to get what they expect. And, and that's a lower bar, by the way, than getting something amazing. When you go into McDonald's, you're not expecting a 4-star amazing dinner. But you are expecting that you're not going to have like diarrhea like you get at Arby's. You are expecting that there's going to be a Big Mac in there, and there's going to be a quarter pounder in there, and there's going to be fries in there. And if you went into McDonald's and it's like, hey, we're subverting expectations today, no burgers, but we do have, hummus, and we have pita chips, and we also have carrots because we're going healthy, and Spam. That's what we've got today. you'd be pretty pissed, or you'd be in Hawaii. But that's the example of, you come in and there's expectations. With comics, there are expectations. What you're getting into, and we'll get to the LCS part in a minute, is that there is a breach of trust, and it really is that serious. And I have seen a lot of people in comic publishers kind of wave this off as it's they're making a mountain out of a molehill, so to speak. But it is, if the customer is telling you something very critical, which is, it shouldn't be that hard to announce something and then live up to it, or at the very least have it be a rare occurrence. I do think the trick of, a brand new ongoing series, it's actually 4 issues. I mean, yeah, cancellation happens and everything else, but still, I have to believe, and this is, I don't know if this is just common sense or not, but if you're a comic publisher and you're putting out books and, you're putting out, a spin-off offshoot of Wakanda featuring some of the supporting characters in the Ta-Nehisi Coates, Black Panther run, or you're putting out a book of the future Foundation kids, minus any of the Fantastic Four, off on their own in space, you have to know that's a risky proposition. That's just, you're not putting out a book with characters that, have any kind of big following, and in many cases are supporting characters in a book that is selling low. I love the Fantastic Four. Lots of great memories from that comic, and I like the team and I like the dynamic. The Fantastic Four does not sell, Spider-Man numbers. It doesn't sell, close to Spider-Man numbers. The Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates, I understand it got some Eisner Awards, but it didn't sell well. Even with the movie out, it did not sell particularly well. It wasn't like it was selling 3,000 copies, but it wasn't selling, 100 either. Unless they did variant covers and it was a new #1 and there was a big push and gimmicks. And when I think they relaunched the Black Panther series, and it didn't, and with all those gimmicks, and it didn't get close to that. So an idea of a supporting book with those characters, what do you think is going to happen? And so that's the common sense part. So don't bill it then as an ongoing, because the fans who are going to show up of these very niche characters in a niche industry are going to get pissed off when, you cancel it after 2 issues or 3 issues, but you should have known better. You should have known better than to make that promise. Why would you irritate the few fans you have on the series? Again, you've heard me talk about it before. I think the bait and switch of artists on books is absolutely wrong. Again, unless there's an illness, unless there's a, something that goes awry. But I have a problem, I don't know about the rest of you, with the, brand new relaunch books. And it's like, it's a brand new Dan Slott, sorry, God, I'm confused. Dan Slott Fantastic Four book with new regular series artist Sarah Pichelli. And, Sarah will be doing 3 issues. Like, that's that definition of new regular series artist that is questionable, we'll just say. And comic companies do this all the time, particularly Marvel, do this all the time. I appreciate, by the way, and yeah, there are horror stories about LCSs, but less. I mean, the funny thing is, I think a lot of the really bad LCSs, a really kind of questionable, scummy behavior that would go on at the LCS, a lot of those stores are gone. They did not survive COVID. They were on the ropes already. And there's few of them. I think it is honorable and ethical to, when you order a book, you buy what you order. I appreciate that. But I also think it is totally fair game, and you should tell that LCS owner when you're picking up the books, hey, I'm disappointed that they advertised this one thing that I bought for, and then it turned out to be something else. That frustrates me. That's I'm buying the book because you deserve your money, but this is wrong. Let's help each other when you order comics in the future. I think it's right to voice your opinion there. But I think this entire business, comics, as a lot of fandoms, whether it's movies, whether it's gaming, whether it's modeling, any like figure models, guys, not like, anyway, whether it's any of that stuff. Suddenly I have a picture of like Zoolander in my head. I don't know why. It is built on trust. This stuff is built on a shaky foundation of trust. And it only works if, the whoever the maker is, in this case, comic publisher, trusts that the fans aren't going to, be crazy lunatics when it comes to talking about the books. And the fans can trust the comic companies aren't going to come out there and intentionally, bait and switch and screw them with the product they produce. If you have that relationship of trust, good business happens, good fan relation happens, good steady business happens, and it really is that simple. Not everything works out, and not everything goes to plan. And if you have trust established, then you can stand up in front of your customer base and you can say, "Hey, it didn't work out like I thought. This is what happened, and we're pivoting." And if you have that trust built up, your fans will pivot with you. Look at we talk a lot about the 90s. It's probably worth another video, but I'll close with this. In the 90s, you had, a huge speculator boom, but you did have a large core group of fans who were buying comics. In the late 90s, when things went really bad, when, the writer became almost irrelevant and the art was just being shoved out any direction, and, their gimmicks were constant, and, late comics were all over the place. Suddenly, without the requirements of the newsstand to get a monthly book out, you had books that were, 6 months late or more. And, there was the reason why comics survived, quite frankly, that time period, is because there was a, not small group of customers and fans who knew that the publishers, and in many cases, had lost their way, and they cared, and they fought for it. They tried. And that's why it worked. That's why it survived into the 2000s for people to come in and, be able to do things. It worked because there was trust built up. And then, the comic publisher had to spend some of that trust. They basically had to borrow some of that trust to survive. And so that's what having a good relationship with fans gets you. It gets you survival when times are tough or when things go wrong or you lose your way. But that's not the state we're in today, where a lot of that trust has been eroded, and that group that's going to follow you over to the next thing is a lot smaller. So something to think about. Anyway, what do you think? Trust in comics. How else does it erode? Thanks for listening.